Hello, everybody, and welcome back to that Milan podcast. Finally, this season is over. Martino Puccio, Matt Santangelo alongside you guys. Before we get into this wrap of a season, we just want you guys to we're here to thank you guys for sticking with us through this entire season. As miserable as it was as we head into the summer, maybe we'll give ourselves like a break or two. I probably won't give myself a break, but I'll probably create short-term stuff, short-form stuff. But again, we appreciate every single one of you that come in here, hang out, give us comments, give us feedback on everything. So it's greatly appreciated with that. Once again, Apple, Spotify, everywhere you can to find us. Obviously, this YouTube channel as well. Go and check out our latest about the Christian Pulisic saga, if you will, on our other YouTube channel. We got some feedback over there, so we appreciate that. So, Santangelo, it is finally done. The season's over.
Yeah,
Go
it's
ahead.
kind of relieving in a way, right? I think obviously it's been like
And bear with Matt's audio, by the way, for you
I'm
podcast
currently
listeners.
moving out of my apartment and it's super echoey. I got literally nothing in this room other than what you see on the wall behind me. So I had to make sure I kept the important things hung up for content like this. In the event that Martino messaged me and he's like, "Hey, you want to shoot something?" At least I have a decent backdrop. But yeah, so bear with me on the audio. But yeah, I mean, I think it's even watching the game yesterday, it was one of those things where I'm sitting there and I'm like there's better things I probably could be doing than watching like a meaningless game on a Memorial Day weekend here in the United States. But I was like, you know what, I'll bite. I'll watch the game. Maybe we see some youngsters. Maybe we see some things from players that truthfully do have a future at this team. Because I think if you look at the 11 that we fielded, there were a lot of players that I think probably don't have a future here. I mean, whether you buy into all the rumors, whether you
Well,
buy
they
into
shouldn't. They shouldn't as
they
well.
should, and some shouldn't, some should, but probably will be sold on. So, yeah, I mean, in brief, in short, a 2-0 win could have been more. Rafa didn't play, Teo didn't play, which I thought was very interesting because Tijani played the entire match. Pulisic played most of the match, and those are two players that have been kind of in discussions regarding their futures and things like that. So it's interesting to see that Teo and Rafa didn't get any opportunity to play. I don't know if that was just sort of a, hey, like this game doesn't mean anything, let's protect them. I don't know, but a win go into the summer, which is going to be a crucial one. Hopefully, we announce Tade next week, and we can kind of get things kicked off, and we have an understanding of what the future looks like going into next season.
Yeah, I think it matters just a little bit on where they finish in regards to Coppa Italia for next season.
Yeah.
They did, funnily enough, finish ahead of Bologna, so Milan are not finishing ninth. Worst case as of today, depending on Fiorentina's result, Milan will finish seventh or eighth. This would be their worst finish in a decade. Officially at that point. So I mean, I guess just to quickly gloss over the Monza stuff. I mean, listen, Monza's terrible. It was like to me, it's crazy because I had for months now felt nothing watching them. In terms of like that anticipation. Because for me, like it's so funny because top four for a lot of people, we all know like the odds of like selling someone like Reinders doesn't happen if they finish top four, which is sort of like you don't want to lose Reinders, so you kind of want to root for top four because that at least allows for some stability. But if you see them missing Europe altogether just one time, that means that they have to sell someone off despite the record revenues, profits. I'm tired of speaking on that every week, but but that's like the point though, right? Is that it didn't matter because they're considering it anyways, and they're going to do it anyways. Ferlani commented yesterday, and I talked to Ali Fisher about this, and I know Max Lombardia said the same thing, and I agree with him because it's about holding someone like Ferlani accountable and these upper management figureheads accountable, and the fact that even though we know he's lying and we know they're going to sell a top player or two anyways, where they're sitting there saying we don't have to sell anyone. Okay, why are you saying that though? Then why are you saying that at all? Everyone, the millions of fans and supporters across the globe would rather you just be honest instead of lying.
Mhm.
Because it's just another slap in the face. And we'll get into everything else about this entire season where things started basically all the way back this time last year, where Lopetegui was Nopetegui and how all that sort of stuff transpired and how they were so late to make a decision on a manager. For me, I just in a vacuum, like this was just it was soul sucking. It was draining. It wasn't anything to have any semblance of positivity about. And, just seeing how everybody is just glad to be done with this. And, I think we could. The protests in general really started prior to the match, and I want to get those up first and talk about that before the season review. So a little out of order by us, but whatever. So I'll just bring it up first. Sempre Milan had it on their Twitter, so we'll go here. They were outside of Casa Milan. Our good friend Mi Marco has been in Italy for like a little while. So again, go and check out his content. He was at the protest. Milan Club London were at the protests. Um, Bunch of great fans, and obviously Curva Sud. So they're outside, and this is for, I guess, a lot of you who haven't seen this sort of stuff. I'm sure you all have at some point if you've been tapped in enough. But for those of you who don't, um, the sign says Singer, Cardinale Scaroni, Ibra, Moncada, leave. Free Milan from this agony. Whether it's the first team or Milan Futuro with you in command, it's sure to be failure. And again, they mentioned Singer as in Gordon Singer and Elliott because they're still on the board. They are still a part of this club. They still are people who own a share and stake within the club. Jerry hasn't fully paid back his loans. Like these are people who are still very much prominent within the club. We see Gordon Singer go to the Coppa Italia final. We see him at the 125th anniversary party. These people are still there. And to me, I was very happy to see something like this. And this was just at the start. There was other stuff going on and being said. And for those of you, again, who may not know what Casa Milan is the headquarters of everything that takes place for Milan. It is their offices. So everywhere where those guys work, and Zlatan was in the stadium yesterday for Lani, obviously gave his quotes. They're all there, and they're making their message be loud and clear, whether or not it's a couple years late. Is besides the point. We have never seen it like this, where they're outside of the headquarters calling for heads, essentially. They did this outside of the 125th anniversary party. Logic would say to you, right, Matt? You
Mhm.
can't possibly see this as ownership and management and say to yourself, let's keep things together. Let's keep doing things the way that we're doing them. But we all know that that doesn't like matter. They're not gonna. These people are so stubborn. They're so arrogant about everything that they don't actually like take these as seriously as they should. Like this is damning. On top of them losing a ton of money themselves because of how pathetic they've been. And for no one to lose their job outside the manager and probably a player sale, a couple player sales, failures of renewals. I mean, just I don't even have like the anger to kind of conjure up here about like it's just yeah, they're right. And they're okay with this. As far as I'm concerned, management's okay with everything. They could say all they want. They're
Mhm.
okay with it. Their actions say they're okay with everything going this way. Because it's so pathetic. And I don't know how you and I'll give it to you right here. I don't know how you as a professional, not you, Santangelo, but I don't know how you sit there at night and sleep. And I know because they're rich, they have all this money. I don't know how like if I sucked at my job this much, regardless of what money I have in my pocket and what I don't have, how could I sleep with myself knowing I'm so awful at something that people are literally calling for my job and thousands of them. It doesn't matter who they are and what they know. It's telling. It's telling that you're that bad at your job that so many people have to go out there and let you know as a whole. And it's like it didn't have to be this way because you bought something that was like on the come up. It's like you hit the eject button as you're going to the moon. It just to me, it's pathetic. I'm out of words, and I usually have a lot, and I'm frankly just tired of it. It's just stupid. So, what did you think of these pre-match protests? I thought these were great, and then we'll get into the one in the stadio.
Yeah, no, I thought they were great, and I think it's obviously something that's very necessary, and it's interesting too because you know we're seeing what transpired yesterday, right? And it's kind of the culmination and something of a boiling over, if you will, of what has played out this entire season: the angst, the frustration, the rage, the disappointment, all emotions bottled up, and they're like, okay, we're going to show you in person, and we're going to show up basically at your doorstep and express our frustration, express all those emotions, and make our voices very clear. The one thing that when I see something like this, the one thing that kind of, it's great, but truthfully, I'm a realist. Like, I could come on here and give you 5-10 minutes of all the wrongs that have been committed by this regime, this management, this group, whatever, this entire season. We've covered it in 30-40 episodes of whatever this entire season, right? But the truth of the matter is this: when you have a absentee owner who, at the time of buying the club, wasn't really familiar with the importance of this club and its positioning within football. Historically, all the trophies. He said, I don't really know how many trophies they had, meaning you don't really know how successful this club and this asset that you're buying is, right? And how much weight it has and how much significance it has for not just those that showed up yesterday, but those that watch the games regularly, buy merchandise, travel across the world to go see, because it brings them immense joy. And what is a bit soul-sucking is the fact that because they don't have an emotional attachment to this team, you almost expect them not to really have any sort of act, because there's a lot of arrogance, a lot of ego within this team, this club. The way they speak, the way they talk, almost talk down and diminish the intelligence of the fan base. Well, we don't need to sell anybody. We see what's going on. Don't play us as stupid. We know what's going on. It's not necessary. Yeah, but you're going to do it anyway. Right? Sandro Tonali wasn't necessary. You did it anyway. Paolo Maldini, regardless of whether maybe he had a couple misses on the market, wasn't necessary. It wasn't a necessary move. It wasn't like, man, Paolo Maldini ran this club into the ground. We have to make a change. So I look at things that transpired yesterday, the banners, a lot of the images, the videos, the commentary from social media outlets, and it's great. It's necessary. You still have to show up for the club, right? Because we love it. But the sad reality is I truthfully don't see any real action off the back of this. I just don't. Because here's what happens. Here's what happens, Martino. Season ends, management, ownership, they're sitting there, and basically they're almost sitting there and they're observing it and thinking, let it all play out. And then they're coming back to us, it feels like, and they're saying, you guys done yet? You guys done talking?
Yeah.
Okay. Anyway, back to normal business proceedings, because you know what happens. This happens. It's in the media for a day or two. There's no games, so you're not going to show up at Milanello. You're not going to show up at San Siro, protest, anything. You're going to wither away into the summer. People are going to go on holiday. People are going to go do what they got to do.
Yeah.
And things are going to continue. I'm sorry, but
So they think.
I hate to be the deliverer of bad news and the reality of the situation, but that's how it is. This management, what we try to do, and this is the message I'm going to convey to people that think that we didn't back Maldini when he was let go and we had our sort of opinion on it. We were basically of the belief and opinion saying, hey, look, we don't like the fact that Paolo Maldini was dismissed. We don't like the fact that Sandro Tonali was sold abruptly out of nowhere. We want Maldini involved. We want Sandro Tonali at this club. But as fans of this club, at some point, what are we to do? We have to just hope that the people who were going into that summer, because it was kind of like their first real go, their real opportunity to show us who they were and what their competence level was and what their true intentions were when they bought this club and how they're running it. Okay, show us. Like, if you're going to do something so unpopular as get rid of Maldini and
Yeah.
Sandro Tonali, you better come armed with solutions and real answers and real impact, because you can't do something so unpopular then and follow up what they've done. And they've done that. So they've shown us who they are. They're gonna go in hiding when the going gets tough. The 125th anniversary.
I
They're
mean,
not going to
the
show.
owner
They're not
still
going to show up
hasn't
the
been
entire
into.
season and
He
speak.
hasn't been there since
Jerry
September.
doesn't say anything. Ibrahimovic he's the sponge in the media. He's the one that says, "Hey, go out there and mitigate this for me," because he don't say it. He's not saying anything. It's Scaroni, it's Zlatan, it's Ferlani. They are the mouthpieces. Jerry's just the one holding the bag. That's it. So I understand people are frustrated and we're calling for Jerry to lose his job and Maldini to come back. Maldini is not coming back.
No.
He's not, guys, he's not coming back. As long as these people are in charge, he is not coming back.
He went out for milk.
People need to realize that. People need to realize that. And that's kind of more or less my sentiments and my thoughts on the protest. It's great. It's great to see. It's great to see the banners, troll and memes, all those sorts of things. The truth of the matter is this. It's almost as if the icing on the cake in all of this was watching Napoli with Antonio Conte go in there, turn a team that finished 10th, instant champions, and now is leaving, basically saying, you could have had this. You could have had something similar to this. And ego, pride, arrogance got in the way, and it still gets in the way of Milan getting back to where they need to be.
And you know what they'll also look at, and I don't like to look at it this way. As of right now, before Juve playing their match, they'll look at it, say Juve win, right? Juve will be on 70 points, Milan finish on 63. You know what they're going to look at? Oh, we were only 7 points off top four, which would have helped us economically. They're going to look at it like a numbers game. They don't, and again, so many people just don't get it. And I'm not saying like so many people, they don't get it. Is that they think what they saw was, oh, wow, look how much this club is worth. Look how much you could sell sports teams for and franchises. Jerry talks about it all the time at his conferences. We see the valuation of sports teams skyrocket around the globe. This is where, PE comes in, private equity, and all these other, sharks come in because they want to flip these assets because they're massive. Like you're flipping clubs like the Boston Celtics, for example, right? They just sold for $6 billion. Do you realize how much $6 billion is, guys? And a lot of people just you see the number 6, but the amount of what 1 billion means and what that's worth, Milan sold for 1.3 billion. Boston Celtics sold for almost 6 times that amount. Okay. What they're looking at, right? Guys like this, Jerry's someone who's invested in the Yankees. Remember, the Yankees also have this stake in this club, right? Love that franchise. Great ethical franchise. And to me, it's just so funny how they think that the route they're going down is going to turn into a prosperous one in terms of flipping the club. They couldn't do a worse job of trying to flip a club. Seriously, on all fronts. It's so funny to me though too, because Elliot is still involved in this, and Elliot did a masterful job in turning things around.
Just to add on to that, I remember at the time of the transition or majority going to Redbird and Jerry, Elliot did put out a very nice poignant statement saying, we basically we want to thank the fans, as stewards of this club. We understand that Milan belongs to the club, belongs to the fans. For all the faults that Elliot had and their sort of reputation as being a vulture capitalistic ownership group and things like that, and really kind of more or less seizing opportunity to kind of jump in on a low asset or low valued asset and kind of repair it. At the very least, they made a lot of decisions that, in hindsight, looking back, beyond the spending, were pretty good moves. Like they did try to bring back like Leonardo. They did have markets where they did try to spend a little bit. In 2019, they brought back Paolo Maldini. They brought back Mazzara, or brought in Mazzara, who knows Italian football. Gazidis. Like they at least kind of had the wherewithal and the understanding to kind of say, hey, like we may not have all the answers, and we understand that people are going to have us and perceive us as being this sort of opportunistic ownership group that maybe doesn't know anything, that's just trying to flip the club. But at the very least, they positioned Milan to get to a Scudetto, to get to a Champions League consistently.
I mean, it's who they're loaning their money.
It's crazy to think Big Bad Jerry, all these guys that came in, Zlatan, all these guys that came in, you were handed almost a jewel, an ascending asset with cornerstone players that you can build a club around, and at least fans and outside fans can identify with, and you fumbled it. You're fumbling it big time in relatively short amount of time.
Well, the two worst owners that we've recently had are people who were given loans by Elliott that have no idea what they're doing, that hired the worst management groups that we've possibly seen. And it's so insane, like Elliott, again, like their decision making. And I'm not really defending them at this point, because I've said this too, because they still own them in the summer of 2022. Yep. And Elliott did save Milan. Okay. But to an extent, there's a line in which they did this, because in the summer of 2022, they refused to invest any further in this asset of theirs. They just said, no, you got your Champions League money. We're not investing more capital in this. We're not giving you more money.
But it's almost, at least in a strange way, though.
It hurts them.
It hurts them, yes. But I think they didn't really hide anything. They didn't hide behind a facade like this ownership is doing. Because remember, all those years where Milan weren't making Champions League and they weren't spending on the market like, people thought and wanted them to, what was Maldini saying in the media? We need to make Champions League consistently. Like, this is the reality of our situation. We can't spend with the big clubs of European football. So everyone was kind of like on the same page and had like a mutual understanding. Yes, it sucks. Yes, we need to buy more players. We need to invest. We get all that.
Yeah.
But at least there was like some semblance of transparency when you look at how Elliott at least handled things.
But they also hired people, like you were saying, and I think a lot of people kind of miss this. The Gazidis hire was, because whatever, Gordon Singer was an Arsenal fan, so he knew who Gazidis was, right? That's kind of the extent of it. Yeah. And they were interested and invested in Premier League football. They let Gazidis do his job and let him handle things. And Gazidis knew from a footballing perspective how to get from point A to point B. Forlani has zero football acumen, zero football background, who doesn't understand this stuff. Even Gazidis was saying to the point, well, maybe we should sell guys so we don't lose assets for free. But he also understood and I tell people this all the time, even Badir, thank God someone else besides me is saying this. And I know you said this to an extent. When they didn't want to extend these players, it was still more valuable to keep players and aiming to win and potentially losing them for free than it is to just sell them off and accomplish nothing and win nothing. Because keeping Hakan, keeping Donnarumma got them top 4. They did lose them, but getting top 4 was more vital for them than selling off those players to kind of replace them with who? But
also too, it's like it's interesting, right? Because you look at the sort of reputation that Milan are kind of self-inflicting on themselves, right? As being a team that's, by all accounts, a selling club. And by some of the decisions of the past where it's like it's unpopular, you don't want to lose top players for free.
Yeah.
But selling them, what has the money? What did the money from Sandro Tonali get us? What did the money?
Well, it got us a great player that we're about to sell.
What is the money from Tijani Reinders going to get? We don't know yet. So
nothing good.
To quote Bader, who we've had on our show, I think once or twice,
Yeah.
You know, someone somewhere got a wire for 70 million. Basically saying like we didn't get anything from that. Like, great, we made a profit. Cool. Let's put that profit in at CDM. Let's put that profit in at center
Right.
line.
Like what's the goal? Isn't
We're
it
not
to
seeing
make
the
your
money
team?
because if you can almost stomach that and tolerate that sort of thinking if you were doing something like where maybe Dortmund was doing, or some of these other clubs like in the Premier League that are doing, where you know they kind of know like, hey, they're like a fringe Europa League team, and I know it's apples to oranges because revenues in the Premier League relative to what the Serie A is, you know,
Yeah.
able to shell out are different. But it's like if you're a team that has like this sort of reputation, like, hey, we're going to sell players for 40 million, 30 million, like Atalanta did it, for example. Hoyland, 1 year gone. And then they go out there and they buy like, prime example, this past summer, Skamaka gets injured, take your hours. He wins the best forward award, Capocannoniere. Like, you see what I'm
Yeah.
saying? Like, they kind of like, I can tolerate that if you're going out there and you're buying like the player that gets us to the next level.
Well,
But
they don't have the management for it
the
because they don't
difference
hire the
is,
correct
but the
people.
difference is exactly the difference is we don't have the trust and faith in this management and this ownership because we have no track record. If you're giving this same situation, and let's say Maldini or whoever, Galliani were like the directors, and it's like, hey guys, like we didn't make Champions League, we got to sub, but you know what? We're going to go out there and we're going to get some players. We're going to do this. We're going to wheel and deal. We're going to get some players that we know based on our evaluation and recruitment are quality players. We don't have a good track record, a positive feeling about them. So why should we as fans, when he comes out for Lonnie and says, you know, be patient, I know the context was different because he was talking about like announcing Tade and I think, you know, maybe a coach or whatever,
Yeah.
was like, you don't deserve that trust. You don't deserve, because you haven't shown us you deserve it.
It's funny because I always like go back to like a flow chart, right? And at the end of the flow chart, right? And if you guys know what that is, it's basically like to get to a final point. And the final point for Redbird and Elliot technically is to what? Make the most money. And to make the most money with this club is winning. And winning means you put in money to do that. Scared money don't make money, bro. Like it's the most simple shit for a guy who's made billions. These
And
people
it's
make billions
interesting,
and they're so bad at it.
and
They're so
and to that
fucking
point,
garbage.
and Martino, to that point, it's funny, right? Because as I'm watching the deadline day or whatever it is in the Premier League, right, where determining who finishes in top four, champions, or whatever, Newcastle needed some help. They needed to get some results, you know, but yada yada yada. They just lost to Everton, right, and they're at home, and it's interesting because the sport is so unique in that, like, you can lose on the final match day and you get some help and they're celebrating like they won because they realize big picture, Champions League revenues. Now we can go spend and get more players,
Yeah.
right? To your point, I truthfully, in my heart, and it's crazy that I'm actually saying this, that a team that acquired Milan, a European football club, I just don't think they really truly understand the domino effect that takes place when you cut corners. Because in other sports,
Well, now they're feeling it. Now
now
they're
they're
feeling
feeling
it.
it. Because I think
Feeling it. And I was doing the quotation marks.
if you spent just a little bit of money in the summer, you got the certain players, and you got the right coach, it didn't have to be this sort of $200 million spending spree. You get the right coach, the players were there. Basically, by all accounts, a lot of the same players that were there last year remained this year.
Right.
You get top four. So the fact that you cut corners, you, in the end, shot yourself in the foot because of all the corner cutting.
And it's funny because technically here's the thing where they become even dumber, right? So like where their logic is, right? You're talking about spending money. They look at the net transfers
Yep.
and the actual money spent on players. They're like, well, actually, we spent over 9 figures, which is true. And then why don't you sit there and say to yourself, how the fuck did that backfire? Oh, maybe because we hired idiots and we fired the wrong people. Maybe we hired people who were completely incompetent. How much money did we invest in a Serie C team that got relegated? Oh, 15 million. Oh, how is that possible? We spent money on a team like that. How did it go down? Oh, maybe because you hired the wrong people. because your guy that you said was an advisor says that he calls all the shots in Zlatan, and then had to be retracted as a statement by the CEO, who had to clarify that the CEO, in fact, makes all these decisions. But then who picks the players for the CEO to give the stamp on that? Oh, that's right. That is your technical director that you had to promote last second. That's like if you fire everybody in your office and the only body left is the fucking intern and the guy who's only been here for 3 months, and you tell the guy for 3 months, you're running the company now. What the fuck? That is what you did. That is what you did. And you're stunned by the results. That not only, sure, you invested that money in the transfer market, but guess what happened? You cost yourself over 100 million. We said it all the time. Top four, this. Paulo Fonseca, you didn't even give him a chance. You fitted in a window where, and I'm not saying he was the right choice. Obviously, he was a failure. You fitted in a window in which you gave yourself an out. Oh, 1 year and maybe one more. Same
Yeah.
with Conceição. 6 months. Yeah, if you do well enough. It's like a
They're all
commission.
prove it contracts, which means you're not confident that is the guy.
Which
Right? Like if I'm
which
giving
is
you
like,
Martino, if I'm
yeah, it's
saying
more risk. It's
it's
more risk for your business.
it's more risk for the business, but that's what I'm saying to you. It's a prove it contract. You're not quite sold on
I
Fonseca,
know.
otherwise you give him a multi-year deal. If you're
But
sold on Conceição, you give, and to Sarri's credit, he's basically saying, like, I want commitments. Like, if you're gonna sit here and give me a 5-month deal and I go out there and I can't turn this around, that's gonna reflect on me poorly in my next interview.
it's stunning for businessmen to not realize that facet of it. How do you not get that? How do, it's not even like a sport. Like they think it's like I don't know what they think. That's the funny part. And we dragged on a little bit too much with this because the protest stuff was great. And to make it better, just to get back into it, Curva Sud went in for 15 minutes, and I know we carried on, but this is like, it's just a larger conversation. This is why Ali has been asking to come back on, which we'll try and have him, Enrico Silvestrin, and then obviously Matt and myself, which will be a larger discussion on all of this, and no chance it goes for at least an hour. It might be a 2-hour thing with this conversation because there's so much nuance that it's insane. But anyways, Curva Sud come into the match for the first 15 minutes. They're loud. If you're watching the match whatsoever, you could hear them. They're screaming. The commentators are explaining and translating for everybody. They're saying the same things that they said at the protest at Casa Milan, and then in unison, which was honestly, truthfully, besides the insert coin game over for AC Milan, this is the most iconic Curva Sud protest ever, in my opinion. And it just says go home, and everybody has their phones out. And yeah, to me, it's everything. And I don't have much else left to say. Like, yes, to the point. I just find it laughable that we got to this point again because we felt like we were right out of the woods. It's like when you're watching a movie and you're yelling at the characters, no, don't, no, you're not out of the woods yet. Stop. Don't celebrate. You're not safe. Even though that they felt that they dodged a bullet, like you're watching a Michael Myers movie or something. And you know the character's fate, but the characters don't know it. Us, the fans, that was us after winning the league title in 2022. No, don't celebrate just yet. You're not just quite out of the Banter era, because what's looming around the corner is the fact that Freddy, Jason, whatever the fuck character you want to talk about, is not dead. He's back. And you're back in the Banter era. And we are, by the way.
That was almost like Maldini's kiss of death, right? In that interview. And I hate to keep harping on that, but
It was
he was basically like, we're here, but we're not, amongst the best teams. He goes, we need to spend now because we have to seize the moment. Basically saying, like, here it is, guys. Like, this is the opportunity. Don't let it slip away. And you're seeing,
because what happens, right? Because you're right, but like, what happens, to further explain it, because we know our listeners are intelligent, we know people, because what happens if you don't? because you miss that window. You miss that window, and what happens? A couple years pass by. A couple years pass by means what?
Too
And
quickly.
you'll and not to even like shit on Inter. Could happen with Inter. You don't know. They could win the Champions League. They could lose the Champions League. Things could change with Oak Tree. But the point is, you miss your window, and you don't spend that money, and that money doesn't come in and spend. You don't further strengthen that squad. You're kind of middling, like Milan were for a year or two, right? They go to they were off the semifinals. Then they sack Maldini. Then what? They finished second last year. And they were like, oh, we didn't see signs of it yet. We're okay. We're fine. We finished second. We made the chance. It was Inter were historically great. What can you do?
Yeah.
Oh, well, Roma played well. It was Europa League. We crashed out Champions League. A little unlucky if Milan were able to finish. Why weren't they able to finish chances? Was it because we didn't have the quality of players? Maybe if we had money to spend for quality of players, maybe we could finish chances. Maybe that would have happened. Maybe we could have been in a better position if that was the case. No. We just missed a little couple misfires here. We're going back into the next season. We got rid of the manager, right? Because the manager is the easiest one to put the blame on. And rightfully so. Pioli, whatever. Eighth place.
It's it's it's
Eighth
it's
place.
it's
Eighth
it's
place.
it's not it's naivety. That's what it
And
is.
now you have to sell your best. And
Yeah.
now even if you could say they sell Reinders. Okay. Why do the other players want to stay? You're not in European competition.
You're
Why
not
do they want to be
serious. You're
here?
not acting like a serious.
Why do they want to see with the way you operate in the market that even though you sold Tonali, right? So say everybody gave an excuse for the Tonali sale, which we all didn't want to. We all hated. We all hated it. We thought it was stupid, right? Say you gave him an out. You're like, okay, whatever. You could do it because the money was insurmountable to turn down.
And he
You could
wound up
turn
getting
around.
banned. I saw people use that. Well, he was going to get banned too, right?
They didn't know shit.
But that's
I
what I'm
know,
saying
I know,
after the
but
fact. People are
yeah.
saying that.
Hindsight's 2020, except all the Milan fans that knew. Not saying about Tonali, about the situation. Look at it. You like and that's like the funny thing because even then, like say like okay, yeah, we failed on all fronts. Then why did no one lose their job? Why did no one lose their job? If the previous guy got fired, and we all know why he got fired. This is just also final confirmation for everybody. Like this is official confirmation, right? Because the rumors and the leaks out were that Maldini didn't do a great job of buying and selling players, and he put Milan at. Now Maldini had us in the best financial situation, consistently competing, getting into the top four. Did not miss Europe, and people want to cite missing Europe. It was because they were banned. Why did they get banned? They got banned because of financial issues from previous ownership and management, not because of himself. He had no part in that. Secondly, he didn't do a good job of investing the money. He put all this money in CDK and it backfired. It didn't do well. They didn't have a good summer. Okay. What about these two past summers? What about their investments? What did they do? They spent more money. They failed more. They've spent more money on two players. I'll give you two players as an example, right? So we'll go Yunus Musa, not to pick on him, but it's 20 million. And then Strahinja Pavlovic. Or we could do Pavlovic and Fofana if we want to, right? What's that, Matt? It's almost like 50 million, right? It's 45 million
Yeah.
for two players. How much does CDK cost? CDK costs 35. We didn't even get into the January window, by the way, where they spent all
You
this
look at
money.
how many more flops that were under this. Chukwueze. I thought Chukwueze was going to be a good signing for us. That hasn't panned out.
They're going to have to sell him. What are they going to another manager? Like, listen, I think they get the player has talent, but like, I'm not an idiot here. It's 3 years in a row with a third manager. What are we doing?
Yeah.
And to the final point of wrap up about Maldini, this was the confirmation. The reason why Maldini got fired was because he asked for more money and he asked for more ambition when it wasn't met. And he said it in his interview where he's like, when I was at Milan, the budget was this amount, but when I left, it tripled. Sure, Paulo got it wrong in a way because a lot of it was funded by the Tonali sale to an extent. So Paulo was incorrect to a degree. But he was also right, though, in the standpoint of there was still funding in other areas. Like the money for Pulisic could have been there. Like it's just tiring to repeat it. And that's what this season was. This season will be one of two things, Matt. I'm not sure if you agree or disagree with this. I think this season has the potential, and I have zero faith that this will happen with Redbird, but this is either the biggest wake-up call in their ownership's history, or it's the first of many disastrous seasons, a string of seasons until they have to sell and leave. That's really what it is. And you know it too, right?
It's
Like,
uh, it's almost like when you see like when you're on the freeway or parkway and you see there's an accident and you're kind of just inching up and you're like, and you see a car on fire, you can't help but look away, like a train wreck. Like you can't help but look away and be like, that's what keeps us going back, right? And
yeah.
you mentioned like we don't, they can go one of two ways. It could be a wake up call, and they can say, you know what, Conte's there. Maybe we go all in for Conte, or you know what, let's go ahead and finally spend up on a coach, a proper coach that we can build a project around. Or they go the other way, and their arrogance and ego get in the way of restoring order to this club, and they make the same old mistakes when it comes to the market, when it comes to the director Tade. Obviously we never wish any incoming players, incoming people to do poorly, but again, I think it's just we're in such a rut, and emotionally we just really just have so much fog and lack of clarity as to what's going to happen. So it's like you almost assume the worst. Like, is
Yeah, I
anybody
mean,
like
why? How
even
could you
remote? Is
not?
anybody even remotely like excited about Tade? Like, I'm reading a lot more of like, he did some things a lot, so he's okay. Nothing to make you excited
Well, like
about. Like,
yeah, well, that's like kind of like the funny thing at like Lazio. Stephen Moore, good
yeah,
friend of ours, made like a thread and was like tagging like all like the transfers for Tade, and Tade is a different thing. We'll get that into another episode. But like the funny thing with like Tade was, and it's funny because it was on a much smaller scale where you're throwing darts for transfer fees on players like under 15 million. You're throwing darts. You're throwing darts. You
it's like
don't
if you're trying to
know.
go to like to quote Conte, right? When you give him 100 euros and you're trying to maybe like you want me to
You
go to
can
a
you
fine
can't go
dining
to a
restaurant,
you can't go to $100 restaurant with a $12
right? Like that's
$12 in your pocket
right,
was like along the lines of like what he said.
right.
And he's right. And it's not even I don't dislike Tade. I've said it. It's just meh.
Yeah.
It's gonna have to be luck, guys. It's really what it's gonna have to be. You just have to hope that he gets us. Well, it's maybe not an Immobile because whatever the striker position. By the way, Francesco Camarda, if you don't see the talent, like you're an idiot. I don't care. I'm not saying he's gonna be something, not be something, but like if you come on, I know what my eyes see. I know what they see. You give that a consistent run, this player should not be loaned out. That
Under the way they've handled him, though, I don't know, man. I'm kind of like,
no, well,
I'm
no, and
like,
and
I agree. I agree with you. I think he could be a good. I think he could be a very, very good talent, have a
there's
bright
something in
future.
there.
But man, like it would be so on brand for this current management
Well,
to
we'll
just
we'll see.
completely
We'll see.
humble
They
themselves.
immediately we should say and again I'm not giving any outs to these guys, but Toriani, Bartesaghi staying. Reports that Liberali is like the main thing that they want to like focus on with the renewal. I if I'm getting something out of this, please just give those kids a chance. Please. I just want to see something. I rather that. I honestly rather that. I'd rather them play them and lose with them to find out what we have instead of selling it off or failing to do anything with them. I'd rather try that. And Camarda, there's just the frame is bigger. He needs to be quicker. His runs are smart, always calling for the ball. Within those 40 minutes, I don't care if it's Monza or not. The trolls online, it's silly. And I'm not saying we're even going to sell him because there's nothing. No one's. He's not worth selling for 10 million for Milan. Like that doesn't make sense. Like I see some people online that are like kind of like, oh well, why can't we? Like why are we going to get excited about that? Like I get it, guys. You're miserable. I'm miserable too. You could have something. You could have something. You
Yeah.
could smile at something, please. Maybe something there. I don't know, but we'll see. I think we should wrap it up. It's a holiday weekend over here. We've beat a dead horse many times. We appreciate all of you that tune in, subscribe, and follow at that Milan Pod. We are booming on TikTok, so please tune in there. Follow us there. I'm a workhorse on there. I promise you. So we're gonna blow up on there. We'll get people on here. Again, MLM podcast. Shout out to everybody that has given us support over the entire course of the season. Sempre Milan podcast as well. Coast to Coast Milan Weekly podcast. Me Marco's channel, Kush's channel. Old Hard Rosso Nero and his channel is phenomenal. Again, everyone else that we've done episodes with this year. Guests from other clubs that support other clubs and stuff like that. We appreciate all you guys so much. We appreciate all the regulars that we see whenever we're capable of going live. And we appreciate all of you that obviously comment on all the videos that we upload after the fact. Again, guys, we just appreciate you so much. We've been doing this. This will be this is technically summer number 9 we're heading into doing content, right? Because we started in 2017. Yeah. So again, we fully appreciate every single one of you. Final stuff, Matt, as we had your stuff here on the ticker at Matt_Santangelo at AC Milan Bros. Final words for this season before we take a little break.
Thank you to everybody that supported us this year. We say this many times. It's easy to support. It's easy to tune in. It's easy to get excited about content and watching YouTube videos and listening to podcasts when you're winning, right? The day after or on your way to work or whatever you're doing. It feels great because you get to kind of like share that sort of positive emotion and feeling. But it can be difficult to have that sort of enthusiasm for content like we put out when we're having the miserable season that we just had. So we truly do thank you guys. I mean, obviously, like I've always been a big proponent and very outspoken on how much I value the Milan community we've helped build. And that community is not built without you guys. It would just be me and Martino talking with our 2 listens.
I mean, it was that for a couple of years, but that was okay.
You know what I'm saying? So like we truly do thank you guys. And any things that are happening around this club, I know that's a very negative time and you're within your right to be pessimistic. But we are still going to be putting out content throughout the course of the summer. When Tade gets announced and we start hearing sort of news about what the futures of certain players are looking like or any targets,
managerial
we will
hires.
be here to give you guys content. As long as you guys continue to tune in and support, like, subscribe, do all those sorts of things, we're going to meet you halfway and give you guys the content you want. So thank you for a challenging, difficult season, but we wouldn't be here without you guys.
Yeah. Thank you guys so much and take care.